When you're hearing that sound in New England, it means that spring has arrived and we're finally ready to begin working on our lawn. But how do you take something that starts off like this and turn it into something a lot nicer? And can you do it without spending a lot of money or a ton of time? Well, fortunately in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I get my lawn started in the spring. The steps are easy to follow, they work, and they don't require you to spend a ton of money or dedicate your entire life to the lawn. The most important lesson for spring lawn care is to not overreact. When you first start looking at your grass in the early spring, you're going to see damage like this. You might see mold and other weird looking stuff, and your instinct is to do something about it. But don't go to the store, don't buy anything, because your lawn is still waking up. It's kind of like you when you first get out of bed, nobody looks all that good. And it's exactly the same thing for the lawn. The very first thing you need to do for your yard and your lawn is to mechanically clean it up. And this is critical because you don't want anything blocking the sunlight. Now in my yard, I've got those great grass plants on the side, but unfortunately they die off in the winter and I need to cut them back. And this is an easy trick I learned from Garden Answer. You tie these grass plants together with this rope, and now when I cut the base, they're not just going to fall apart and go everywhere. But unfortunately, a lot of these things blew around during the winter. I like to start off by cleaning up my beds first, then I'll rake all of that stuff onto the lawn. Then at that point, it's a little bit easier to rake everything together, and I can put it in a wheelbarrow. I'll use an ATV like this to dump everything out. I'm going to use one of my favorite rakes. This thing is called the Groundskeeper 2, and this is definitely one of the best tools to help you do any sort of cleanup. Even once I raked everything together and put it in the ATV, you can still see there's a ton of debris left. But fortunately, this is the time to break out your lawnmower and use that thing like a vacuum cleaner. And it doesn't have to be a big mower like this. Anything that has a bagger is going to work just fine. Now the good news is the cleanup is the hardest part of the job, but it's also the part of the job that doesn't really cost any money. You can use the tools you have and the mower that you already own. But we want to get the grass looking great, and how do we get it to green up as quickly as possible? And that brings us to our second step. You want to fertilize your lawn as early in the season as possible, but there's one thing you need to be aware of so that you don't make a major mistake. Early in the season, your grass might look okay and feel soft, but underneath that dirt could still be frozen. And that means any fertilizer you put down is not going to get used by the grass, and you'll waste your money and your time. So an easy way to check if the soil is ready for fertilizer is to take something like a long screwdriver or rod and press it into the soil. You want that thing to be able to easily go in, and if it goes in like this, that means your soil is ready and it's okay to put down your first application of lawn fertilizer. And there are some brands out there that say they have a special spring formulation, but there really isn't anything you need to do that's different. Just use a regular brand of lawn fertilizer, and for me, I'm going to keep using the PGF Complete from the Andersons. And the kind of weed control I use in the early spring will really surprise you. I don't do anything at all. I don't use pre-emergent, and I don't spray any of these weeds like this. These little ones are going to pop up in the early season, and these things generally burn off as soon as the temps warm up. But putting down pre-emergents is to stop things like crabgrass, and you would think that's a really good thing. But I've tried them out a couple of times, and I never saw any real difference in the type of weeds I got later in the season. But pre-emergents are kind of like an insurance policy, and many people believe they have to use them, but it's another chemical that you're adding to your lawn, and you might want to try a year without them to see what kind of results you get. And here's my lawn last year in the middle of the season, no pre-emergence, and I hadn't even treated for weeds at all. And I think you'd agree, it's looking pretty good, and there isn't a weed in sight. I treat my weeds after they come up, and that's if they come up. Each year that I've done this, I've gotten fewer and fewer weeds, and I only spray for weeds just a couple of times a year. Now personally, I use the product Tenacity because it's given me excellent results, and I only have to put it down when I need it. And what you just saw is exactly what I did to my lawn last week, and that's all I'm going to need to do until later in the season. Now you can go ahead and do something mechanical like raking or even dethatching your lawn now, but I still would recommend putting down that fertilizer first, allowing it to settle in for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then look at your lawn again. If you need to rake it or dethatch it, that's going to be a perfect time to do those things. The final tip is don't let yourself get screwed with lawn care. It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. There are many people out there putting their names on products that want you to spend money, and they're going to tell you that all these things are going to make the difference. But in reality, basic products like fertilizer, getting a good cleanup, are going to deliver better results for your lawn with the least amount of effort and money. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click on the subscribe button along with the bell so that you'll be notified of any new videos I post in the future.